excited to be here today. And whether you're just watching or cooking along, it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you'll learn a lot of tips, but feel free to ask questions throughout. The Miles for Migraine team here is here to interrupt me, and I don't mind it at all. I actually welcome your questions. So no question is too large or too small. I want to answer them all. And so we feel free to ask anything you'd like. Stop throughout and message them with your questions for me. And I will also be giving tips throughout the process. Today, we're going to make a berry cake. So whatever berries you like, whether it's blueberries, I have a mixture of blueberries and strawberries. You can use blackberries. If raspberries are a good fruit for you, you can add some raspberries. So I'm going to mix a few of them, and then I'll show you what you can do with your leftover berries. So, I originally was going to make a smoothie, but we'll see how many berries I have left over because I caught my husband giving them to my son this morning. I was like, no, those are for the cooking class. So I have quite a few, but I don't know if I have enough for a smoothie and this. So we'll see. I may switch it to a mocktail, but I'll show you how to make both or kind of talk to both. And then, so we're going to get started on this cake. This is my favorite cake. This is actually one that I learned. I went to a cooking school in France for a little bit in the middle of Burgundy. And this was a cake that we learned to make. It's just super, super simple ingredients, no layers, no nothing fancy. It's no icing. It's one that I really like to make for adult birthday parties or friends. I like to give it as gifts. It freezes extremely well. So my plan for today is actually to make it for our Easter family get together next week. And so what I'm going to do is just take this cake, cool it down, immediately put it into the freezer, and then just defrost it at room temperature next week. And it'll be perfect and ready to go just within like 2 hours to defrost. So you can do the same thing with me if you can resist. I'm going to try to shoo my family away from it now, but this is a great cake just for all around, and you can switch out the fruit too. So like a lot of times in the fall, I have this recipe on my website, but I'll layer apple pieces around the top of it instead. It's so beautiful. You could do, I have one for the summer also on my website for a strawberry and peach cake. So I mix the two together. You could just use all peaches if you wanted to. So that's really, really great during peach season. So this will be a good recipe to have in your recipe box just to pull out anytime you kind of need a quick cake. We are going to start today. You'll need a 9-inch cake pan. You'll also need a piece of parchment. If you don't have a piece of parchment, we can work around it, but I really recommend a piece of parchment because it will help you to remove your cake very easily from the cake tin. So, and the trick with this is because we're making the top so pretty, you want to definitely, like normally when you're using a cake pan, you're layering cakes and you're going to just put icing on it. But with this one, we want to leave the top really pretty. So that's what helps this pull out. So you can just kind of put your hand underneath it and push it back and leave the top all really nice. I probably, because this cake takes about 50 minutes to cook, we probably will end class before this is finished baking, but I'll get you through the hard part. And then all you have to do is wait. And I'll give you tips for pulling it out at the end of class. So you can just use a large piece of parchment. And what I did.
Excuse me, Alicia. I have
yeah.
If I don't have parchment paper, what else can I do?
So I'll get to that. I am going to first, I will do like a square. This was cut from a square piece of parchment. So I would put a square piece of parchment, put your pan over it, and then just use a pen or a pencil to draw around and cut. The other way you can do this is just how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the wrapper from my butter and just grease the inside of the pan all around. You could also use oil if you've decided to make this dairy free. I actually haven't tried to make this cake dairy-free myself, but I've made a different version of this in another class, and a lot of people did make it dairy-free, and they said it turned out really good. So that's what I'll just kind of say to speak to that. So I just rub that all around so it's nice and greased. I'm going to put my parchment down below. If you don't have parchment, just leave it open. You might just struggle to get your cake out a little bit more, but hopefully you don't have that problem with all of this. The last thing I'm going to do is take a little spoonful of flour. So you should have your all-purpose flour near. Just kind of, just a tiny little bit, kind of sprinkle that on the top of the parchment or the butter, if you're not using parchment, and just work it around the pan. So this will help coat that pan so it just slips out really nicely. And it's kind of fun to do, honestly. So we're just going to work that flour around the pan. Any excess, just dump it out. You don't want that excess to kind of be sitting in there, because then it can just, you don't need that in your cake batter. So this is what it looks like after I'm done with it. And we're going to move on now that that's ready. You want to make sure, if you're cooking along, you want to make sure to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and get that going while we mix everything up. You do not need a stand mixer for this recipe. It can make everything a little bit easier, but I'm going to do this by hand today just to show you how it'll work by hand. And yeah, so we don't have to worry about that. And it's especially good if you're sensitive to sounds or having a migraine day and you're just looking to cook through something. Like, I know that sometimes baking during a migraine day can be very soothing. It's like a mindfulness activity, so it can kind of distract from the pain or the dizziness. This is something that helps me a lot too, especially if you're not rushing to make something. If you just want to make this for fun and to practice that mindfulness and just focusing on the ingredients, it's something that can be done, but also, you know, keep the external noise down and the movement as well. Like, I know for me with vestibular migraine, sometimes looking at the spinning of the mixer can trigger things. So that's where, you know, doing this by hand can come in handy. I have my butter. Hopefully you guys have pulled out all your ingredients to be room temperature butter. If you're using oh, go ahead.
No, Alicia, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. We've had a question and a couple different answers for it, and looking on Google, I'm not getting different answers also. And the question is, can I use wax paper instead of parchment paper?
I prefer parchment paper. So wax paper does not, it can get sticky. It doesn't have the non-stick capabilities that parchment paper does. So I would just use parchment for this recipe instead of wax paper. Wax paper is kind of better for like cleaning up messes or, you know, putting in between things when you freeze them, but parchment is better for baking and cooking, if that makes sense. I hope that answered your question. So we're going to move on. I'm going to spoon out the flour. So we have 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. I just have this kind from Whole Foods, whatever kind you like to use. This is a gluten-free 1-to-1 all-purpose flour also works as well. I'm going to show you how to measure this. So basically with baking, the most accurate way to measure things is by weight, but weighing items is time consuming, and we don't all have a kitchen weight or a kitchen scale. And so to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to show you a trick to getting more accurate measurements, especially when you measure things like flour. So what we're going to do this kind of scoop, like a scoop and level method, but I see a lot of people do this where they take their measuring cup and they just dig it into the flour. That can actually give you an inaccurate measure of flour, and it can actually increase the flour in your cakes and your cookies and things like that. So if you find things, they're not super moist, they're kind of doughy, you might be measuring your flour incorrectly. So a way I like to do this is to take a big spoon and just scoop it into my measuring cup. And this will keep the flour nice and light in there. You won't get any amount packed down. And then we will just level this to get it to the proper amount. I absolutely love these measuring cups. They're from Williams Sonoma. They're a little pricey, but they're worth it because they're odd measuring cup amount. So I'm actually using a 1.5 cup amount, and it just makes things so nice for baking, especially like, most measuring cups I think come to a cup, but this gives me 1.5 cups, or sometimes I'll get like a 2 teaspoon measuring spoon, which is really nice, or a 1.5 teaspoons one that they make. So rather than having to do 2, you just get kind of the 2-in-1 special. So I'm just leveling my flour with the back of my knife like this back into the main flour bag. And I have 1.5 cups here that I'm going to do, and then 1/4 cup. Although my odd measuring cups kind of defeats the purpose of my odd measuring cups. I have not seen a 1 3/4 one. If you find one, please let me know because I would love to order it. So we have 1 3/4 cups of flour. I'm going to add in my baking powder to this mixture. So this is a tablespoon of baking powder. It's a lot. It sounds like a lot. This is why I recommend people use aluminum free, because when you buy baking powder that isn't aluminum free, sometimes in recipes where you're using a large amount of baking powder, you can kind of get that aluminum taste to it, and we don't want that. So we're using aluminum free baking powder for this cake since it is a larger amount of baking powder, but it's not an inaccurate measurement. I get that asked all the time. It's definitely a tablespoon. So we're going to add that to our dry ingredient mixture. And then we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. I'm just going to add that in here. You can use table salt, and just make sure you cut down the amount to about 1/4 teaspoon. So those are all my dry ingredients. I'm just going to mix them together really quick. Get those nice and combined, and we'll stir those in later. And then I'm going to start mixing together my wet ingredients. So off to the side here, I have 1 cup of milk. Is it a cup? Yes, 1 cup of milk. And then I have 1/4 cup of mascarpone cheese. So this is like an Italian cream cheese. It's a little bit lighter than your traditional style cream cheese. This just gives a great, like creamy, more decadent flavor to the cake. Also makes it a little more moist. And it just adds that something a little bit extra. I have seen people make this cake without it. They just completely omit it. I've seen people do it with regular cream cheese instead, which I think is a little bit more difficult to mix. Hang on, I forgot my whisk. I think that's a little more difficult to whisk because mascarpone is just so much lighter than regular cream cheese, but we're just going to whisk these two together till they're kind of smooth. And that's where it helps to have everything closer to room temperature.
Okay. Alicia, we have another question from your cooks.
Okay.
She wants to know if she's using applesauce, how much should she use?
I would use the same amount. I just haven't tried that yet. I think your cake might be a little more wet, but just know what to expect with that.
Okay, thank you.
It should work out okay. I would just, the texture might be a little bit different than what we're using today. So whisking that till it's nice and smooth and combined there. And then we're going to set this aside. Again, if you want to make this dairy free, I've had people just like leave out the cheese totally. And I have had people do oat milk instead. So we're going to set that off to the side. And then I have my butter here that I've kind of started mixing a little bit. I just have a wooden spoon to do this. This is just completely softened. So we're just going to kind of get our little workout here by mixing it till it's nice and smooth and fluffy. So whisk that as many times as you can. And then we're going to stir in the sugar. So I have here, this is half a cup of butter at room temperature. I believe that's 8 tablespoons of butter. So add that in. And then we are going to combine it with our sugar. And here, I love to do this. If you have my cookbook and you make the vanilla bean cookies in it, or you like to make your own vanilla ice cream or use vanilla bean for like any sort of other baking recipe, what I like to do is set mine out and let them dry for a few days. Just after you scrape out the seeds, let them dry for a few days. And then after they're dry, I put them in just my regular cane sugar, and it gives a vanilla flavored sugar and imparts that essence of vanilla. So you have really inexpensive vanilla sugar that you could probably buy for a lot more money, but this will save you a little bit, and it just smells amazing too. So I love to use this in all of my baking recipes, actually. So I'm just going to pour out 3/4. I got a little piece of, that's the only thing you have to watch. Sometimes they break off. 3/4 cup of sugar here. It's hard to do from this angle. Okay. Level this off too with the back of my knife. Step off here. Sometimes it's easier to just have a bowl that you do this over, and add that to your butter mixture. Just going to combine these two together. Actually, I hope none of my family is watching right now, because I caught my dog as I was setting this up. She had her mouth all in this butter, just licking away. Totally ate half of the butter wrapper. So yeah, that's really interesting. She is obsessed with butter. I don't know why that is. But sometimes like I'll wipe my hands like right here on my side, and she'll just follow me around and lick it. So I guess it's my fault for getting her addicted to butter, but she definitely got a mouthful. So I'm hoping that the oven kills all the germs. I'm just gonna kind of scrape. This is the joys of doing it yourself by hand, is you just have to scrape everything down every once in a while just to make sure it's combined.
Well, we hope your dog will be okay, Alicia.
Hope so too. Have a lot of dog related expenses. I don't know what it is. I think they're seeking attention after the baby or something. But yeah, so they keep things interesting. Okay, so to this mixture, we have our sugar and our butter. I'm just going to add 1 egg. And why keep all of this at room temperature, or bring this out about an hour before you start cooking, is everything just mixes so much easier when, oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, Alicia, yeah, with the mixing in mind, we've had a question, should I expect the butter, cheese, and milk not to totally incorporate? Maybe you could zoom in on your batter or what it looks like. I don't know if that's possible.
Cheese, and milk. Okay, so the butter should be separate from the cheese, and the milk should be combined together.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to keep whisking. It's just, Sometimes if your cheese and your milk are not room temperature, it can clump up, especially your cheese. It does clump up at first, so just keep whisking and it should eventually mellow out. I just have a really good whisk like this.
Okay.
So just keep going, or hand it off to a family member who can just keep using it like this. The more it sits at room temperature, the better. But for the butter, it should combine with everything pretty easily if you have it at room temperature. I would say that maybe it's a little cold where you live or something like that if you've had it out, and maybe that's why it's not combining very well. But just keep mixing as best you can.
Okay, thank you. I hope that
Yeah,
answers.
sure.
If it's not completely answering your question, please, type a clarification in the chat message. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just going to stir in that egg till it's fully combined. So this is what mine looks like right now. And then if you're using a mixer, just do everything on low speed just till it's combined. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. So let's say you're like super sensitive to alcohol. Trader Joe's actually makes a really good alcohol-free vanilla. I think it's a common misconception that alcohol cooks out when you use it in cooking. So one thing that's good to know for migraine especially is that with vanilla, it's probably not that big of a deal because it's a really small amount, but with other things, like say you're using, a lot of people cook with wine or bourbon or something like that. What a common misconception is when you do it for migraine is like you think, oh, all the alcohol is cooking out. But if you're sensitive to sulfites, like a lot of times cooking actually, it decreases the amount that's going into your food, but it concentrates the sulfites because those don't burn out. So a lot of people can get more sulfites concentrated in one area. And so if they're super sensitive to sulfites, it can cause issues. Same thing with alcohol. Like what I've learned is that you have to bake things for a really long time or roast things for over an hour to pretty much eliminate most of the alcohol. So there's a lot of handy charts online, but just something to take note of if you're really sensitive and you notice that even cooking with it bothers you. That's just something to take note of. So we're going to mix in that vanilla.
Okay. Can I ask, is everyone, are your batters coming together? Those who didn't have the butter, maybe at room temperature, are you able to continue forward with the process? Do we need some helpful hints? Okay, I'll let you know, Alicia, if we need some helpful hints. It looks like we're all okay.
We're all good? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think just continuing to mix that, and then hopefully if you need to, just let it sit at a room temperature a little bit longer. So, okay, so I have my wet ingredients all combined. Let me just make sure I have everything. I do. And I'm going to combine in my dry ingredients. So I have my milk and cheese mixture here. I have my butter mixture here. And I have my flour mixture here. So we're going to combine these in 3 parts all together. So we're going to add a little bit of our flour, probably about 1/4 cup. Start with that. Mix it in. Just till it starts to come together. Then add in a little bit of your milk mixture. Add it in about half of it, I would say. And then just stirring that together. A little bit more flour. And then we're gonna add more milk to it too. So I like to do this in 3 separate parts, but if you like to do it more, just do whatever works for you. But I find this is easier to mix together. Okay, got all the milk there. And this is one of those cakes, it's just kind of like a simple vanilla cake to start for the base, which I think works really well with fruit. But if you wanted to, you could mix in different spices, especially around the holiday season. So what I'll do with the apple cake is sometimes I'll add a little bit of cinnamon and ginger. And that is really, really delicious with this mixture as well. So you can kind of make it your own from there. And don't worry, it's going to be just a little bit lumpy. That's okay. As long as you just want to avoid any major lumps of flour. Especially if you're hand mixing. This is just part of the journey of hand mixing. But you know what? It's really, really good workout. So we're always told to exercise with migraine. Well, you are getting your arm workout today. So I think you can check that off your list of things to do.
Alicia, it's looking great. It's looking great. Your batter. I'm wondering if there's a way, as when your batter, you can zoom in and kind of share it with the rest of us to get a sense, so we can have a sense if we're on the right track.
Sure. Yeah. So
okay, thank you.
What it's looking like a little bit more. I'll just tilt my camera down for you guys, and yeah.
Are we feeling successful? Yes?
Yes. Okay, good. So you can kind of see it has a few little lumps in it. And that can be a little bit from some of the butter and from some of the cheese too. But overall, I don't have any like major clumps. I'm not seeing any major clumps of flour or anything like that in there. And oftentimes, about right now, I actually like to switch from using a wooden spoon to have this little spatula that like I just love. Let me show you guys. Okay. I have this one. It's like kind of a flat spatula, and it really allows you to get the sides, which I just adore. Okay, so this looks perfect, actually. This is exactly what your batter should look like. Kind of light, fluffy, with very minimal lumps in it.
Alicia,
So take our, yes,
is there a danger of over mixing?
There is, but it's less common that you're going to over mix it with your hand. You're probably more in danger of that if you use an electric mixer. So, but the way we were doing it here, just by folding it in, you're not sitting here going like this. You just want to fold it in, kind of like I did. Just kind of fold the mixture around. That's not going to over mix your batter.
All right.
What you're going to run into a problem is that, mixing really quickly.
Looking back over our ingredient list, questions come in. Have we added the egg yet, or is that to come?
Yes, so we added the egg whenever we did after the sugar and the butter mixture. So we mixed together the butter and the sugar. Here, I'll move you guys up. We mixed together the butter and the sugar to get until those were combined, and then we added in the egg, and then we did the 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Okay, we good? Should we move on? Okay. So I'm just going to pour my cake batter into the pan like this. This is where that spatula comes in handy to kind of scrape down the sides. And then just kind of run it around the top so it just gets spread out evenly.
It really is exciting to see so many cooks today.
That's awesome. I love it when people cook along. Makes it a little more fun. Especially like hearing the questions, because then you guys get to ask questions like as it's happening. Like, why is everything not mixing right? Well, yeah, that's, kind of how we learn, by doing, I guess. So this is pretty much ready to go. I'm just going to set this to the side. Bring over. Oh, yeah.
Can you zoom in on the pans, do you think, just so we can see that we filled them about the right amount and the pan? Okay, great. Okay. Thank you.
And we'll come back to this because this isn't done. We still have to do our berries.
And can our bakers also just kind of share the fruits of their cooking? How are your pans looking? Are they all good? Okay, we've got Lisa's looking great. Paola's wonderful. Looks like we're going to have some good desserts tonight. All right, thanks.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to move on just to this. If you're using blueberries, like you don't even have to mess around with this, but I'm going to slice up some strawberries for the topping of this. And then I'll show you kind of how to layer everything. I've actually not done this assortment of berries. So, bear with me. I'm going to try to get as creative as possible when I do this. when I arrange these, but we'll see how this works out. I'm sure it'll come together. So I'm just slicing the tops off I don't know if you can see, I'm just slicing the tops off my strawberries, and then slicing them into really thin slivers. I don't know if you can see.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That's very helpful. And as you said, we can use the blueberries or the strawberries. So ours might all look different from each other. Is that right?
Yours, yes, it might all look different. That's okay. I recommend using about a cup of fruit total.
All right, maybe we can share ours again after we get all our fruit on. It might be very pretty. Okay, great.
Be more or less depending on, how you want to style your cake.
Okay, great.
I'm gonna start showing you how I layer this. So I'm gonna move my camera really quick. I'm sorry if this causes anyone to be busy, but hopefully not. Okay, so here we are. So I got my pan here. The instructions out of the way. I'm just gonna start layering this. Let me see how I want to do this. I'm going to start in the middle, I guess. So do it a little bit like a flower, fanning the edges out. You can overlap just slightly if you'd like. And just try to do whatever pattern works for you.
Oh, it's looking very pretty.
This will give me like a little bit of we'll do like 3 little blueberries in the middle. Let's do 4.
Please, our bakers, please feel free to share a picture of, a close-up of your cake top. Don't wait to be asked. Just let us see it. It's good. They're going to look beautiful. I'm thinking about it. Lisa, yours looks really nice. Thank you.
So you just want to do this all the way to the
strawberries on Paola's. Looks great. And we do have a birthday today too, so that's exciting.
Oh
That
my gosh, happy
yeah,
birthday.
it
Whose
is.
birthday
Uh,
is it?
it is Lisa's birth.
Lisa.
Is that? Wait, let me just make sure. We just had a birthday, Lisa. It is Lisa Magus. Is it, am I saying your name correctly? And we want to wish you a happy birthday and enjoy your birthday cake tonight. And
Yes.
we have another suggest from Francine. She said the cake also looks great with sliced apples, pears, apricots, peaches, or cherries. So we have lots of variations we could do with our fruit. They're looking beautiful. We have so many spring
Yes.
fruits and summer, coming in, and lots of fresh fruit. Looks delicious.
Yes. So this is, I'm just kind of adding a few blueberries around on the edges. But anyway, you just want one single layer of fruit. So whatever you have, go ahead and add. Yeah. It's kind of like a little flower. So I'm just going to sprinkle this with a little extra sugar. You obviously don't have to, but it just kind of gets a little nice crunch on the top. If you, another thing you could do, and I love to do this at wintertime, is to dust this with powdered sugar after it's finished cooking. So once it cools, just kind of put some powdered sugar over if you have a, why am I having a brain fart on this right now? But
Could a sifter work? A sieve?
Like a sifter, yes. That's what the word I was looking for. Or I have one of these things. Strainer, basically. Sometimes I'll put that in here that I'll use like for vegetables and stuff like that. And I'll add the powdered sugar in here and just kind of dust it over that. So that's another way you can do it. But you want to make sure that your cake has fully cooled down. Otherwise, that powdered sugar is just going to mix into the cake and won't sit nicely on top of it. So this is going to go into the oven at 350. It usually takes about 50 minutes. I like to check mine at about 40 just to make sure, because different ovens cook different temperatures. I think when I originally tested this recipe, it was, let me see. Yeah, 55 minutes. So when I originally tested this recipe, it was in an old oven of mine. That was a gas oven, and it did take longer for me. So it took about 55 minutes. I think in my oven now, it takes around, I had it calibrated, and it's an electric oven. So it takes me about 45 to 50 minutes in this oven. So just check it. You know your oven's best. But what you can do to test it is to insert a toothpick in the center, and if it comes out clean, and by clean, I mean, it can have a few little pieces on it, but just make sure it doesn't look doughy like your batter, basically. You want it to just have a few crumbles on it, and that's all. So we're going to put this in the middle rack at 350 for about 50 minutes. I'm going to add mine here. And then your cake should be done. So it's literally that easy. We made this, we put it in the oven. It only took us 40 minutes, and we were talking the whole time. So really, you could probably do this in about 20.
Right. Alicia, this is great. We do have a couple more questions.
Sure.
I'm hungry, so I'll be baking this tonight as soon as we finish. I have a brand new grandchild and a brand new mother, my daughter, so they're going to get this for their dinner tonight, or with their dinner. Yeah. So we have one question. If you have any idea how to adjust this for high altitude.
Oh gosh, I do not, but I will say I have a great food blogger friend. Her name is Nicole, and she is at what's her name? Her cookbook is Sugar High. She's at Dough-Eyed. I think it's like Dough-Eyed Baker or Dough-Eyed Blog. But you may want to, if you're on Instagram, I would shoot her a message because she's really, really good. Or she might have a recipe that she already has that gives you good instructions. But I know that you have to usually play with like different leavening and that sort of thing. So,
and so
yeah.
To find her on Instagram, if you could repeat the contact, and I'll put it in the chat room.
I can't remember off the top of my head. She's at like Doe-Eyed Blog or Doe-Eyed Baker, one of those. I think if you just search the @Doe-Eyed, she should pop up. Yeah,
okay.
Doe as in Dough. So Doe, Doueyed. Yes, Doe-Eyed.
At doe-eyed.com.
Yeah. Yeah, and she knows me. We took one of her recipes for cinnamon oat scones and I made it to sea level. So it did take some recipe testing. So I know that can be kind of tricky. If you're already down this route, I would just go ahead and bake it and see how it turns out. But for next time, she can probably help you with some tips to edit the recipe.
Okay, great, thanks. And one of our participants has found it online, so that's great. So the doe@doe.com seems to be correct.
Yeah.
Okay, and then one other question. I found sometimes when to take a cake out of a pan can be tricky.
Yes.
So maybe you can kind of guide us on how to do that.
Yeah, so I would say to let it cool for at least 30 minutes to an hour. What I do is I just take it out of the oven and put it on my stove. So just leave it on your stove. Don't touch it for like 30 minutes to an hour. And about that time, it should be safe to remove. And it should what you can do, I don't have it anymore, but I'll kind of use this as an example. So what you can do is just slide a knife around the edge between the cake and the cake pan, and just to kind of help loosen it a little bit if you get any sticky points around the edges. But with all the butter and the flour that we used on that, along with the parchment paper, it should just pop right out. So that happens for you too. The way you want to do it, when you go to do it, here I'll use this cheese, is to slide your knife around the edge, okay, and then stick another plate on this side. So where am I trying to use? I don't have anything. So stick a plate here, put the cake on top, like a flat plate or a cutting board or whatever you have that's flat around, and sit it on that, remove the pan, and then pop it back on a cake platter. Should stay all together nicely.
Okay,
that way you're not using your hand and it's falling all around. Like usually a large cutting board or something like that would be good. And everything, the fruit and everything should stay on top really well. Okay, great.
Yeah. We also have questions on kinds of fruit to use. Can we use fresh pineapple? Can we use fresh pineapple, bananas? Is any fruit really usable? I guess, are there any fruits? Maybe we should ask, are there any fruits we shouldn't use?
So I don't cook with pineapples or bananas very often because they are migraine elimination diet ingredient. So some people do struggle with citrus, as well as bananas are high in tyramine. So especially as they age and get more brown, some people can have issues with it. I see it as a fairly common trigger on my website, but they're great to use for, if you're not sensitive to it or if you have reintroduced them. I would probably stay away from bananas or pineapples on top of this cake just because I don't know how they would turn out. I imagine if you slice the pineapple pretty thin, it would probably work, but I would stick with berries for this recipe. Berries, I know apples work. I know peaches work. Anything that kind of has a little more substance to it works really well. So if you want to test it out yourself, go right ahead. But I just get nervous telling people it'll work without doing it myself.
Okay. And then we had one question about the fruit. Will the fruit turn brown, such as apples, if we or pears, while we're preparing them? And
So I would just recommend slicing right before you layer them on top of
Okay.
your cake, but no, they won't turn an ugly brown. Like if you go to my website and you just search French apple cake, you'll get a really pretty picture of how the apple or like a pear one will turn out. I would not use overly ripe pears because they'll be too mushy. I would use something with a bit more substance to it when you use pears. So something similar to an apple would be good.
That would be great. And that leads me to my next question. I want to make sure I put in the chat room your Instagram, which is terrific, your Instagram account. And I really urge
Thank
people.
you.
And your website. And if I can put that information in, I would love to put that in our chat room. Instagram.
Someone ask a type of pear. So the type of pear I would use would probably be a Boss pear, or you know what? I get Royal Riviera one sometimes. These make a really good gift, but a lot of people, since they don't like to send me chocolate because of the whole migraine thing, they'll send me like a box of pears from Harry and David. So we'll do a lot of pears from there too. I saw someone said camise; those work well too. So yeah, any of the green pears would probably work well. The only one that I would probably stay away from is Asian pears, which tend to be a little more starchy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then thank you. And your contact for your Instagram is?
Oh, it's just at the Dizzy Cook.
Okay.
All one word. Yeah.
At the Dizzy Cook. Okay. Wait, I don't think I did that right, but I'll get it in. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll put your website in.
Feel free to ask some questions there. Like if you guys make this later on and you're having trouble with it or whatever, just feel free to shoot me a message over there and I can let you know some troubleshooting tips too.
Okay.
I also have a Facebook group called Dizzy Cook Recipe Chat, and it's just meant for people like sharing recipes that they've made from the website or the cookbook, and if they need help like substituting things. So just you can also join me on there if you're a Facebook person, and it's like a private Facebook group. You just have a few questions to answer and you get right in.
And can you repeat the Facebook chat again?
Yeah, it's called Dizzy Cook Recipe Chat.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so I put those in the chat room. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's really fun. You can just see what other people are making, how they've edited it themselves, or like if you're like, I need to make this dairy free, like, can I make this dairy free? Or I want to use this with pears. What kind of pear? So it's questions like that. That's a really good spot for it.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just looking. You've had some feedback on your Facebook group that it's fabulous. So that's good.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that's good.
It's not your typical migraine group.
Yeah, so upbeat. This is our social Saturday.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you guys want to get going on the smoothie stuff and the mocktail? I think I'm going to switch to a mocktail today, but I'll show you how to do the smoothie as well, or talk to that.
Why don't we go ahead? Has everybody put their cakes in the oven? Put your thumbs up. Are we good to go for the next? Looks like we are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So a little bit about smoothie making is, it can be a really, really helpful quick meal or snack for people with migraine, but something that we have to be careful of is doing sugar, like too much sugar at one time that's not balanced with, we want to balance it with fiber, we want to balance it with some fat, we want to balance it with some protein. So a few things, I'll give you a few tips on how to build a smoothie, especially with some of your leftover berries. The good thing about using mixed berries is they're not very high in sugar. Where people can kind of get into trouble is where if they're, adding lots of bananas, lots of sweeteners like honey or sugar to their smoothie, and they're not really adding anything else to it. So let's say you add a bunch of strawberries and bananas and you do like a scoop of ice cream or something like that. That can actually work to even trigger a migraine, because you're getting all of this sugar at one time, which can spike your blood sugar. So we want to kind of avoid that when we build our smoothies. I'm sure a lot of you guys know about the new study that's come out. It was talked about it's been talked about so many times, especially at this recent Migraine World Summit. And then it's also a huge basis of my new cookbook. And it's about balancing omega-3s with omega-6. So omega-3 fatty acids, and a lot of doctors, when they talked about this, or dietitians or whatever, they'll tell you, hey, you need to eat walnuts for this, or you need to eat lots of nuts to do this. And that's not necessarily true. You can make a really great smoothie without using any nuts, especially that's high in omega-3 fatty acids too. So some ways to do this, and I say that because nuts ended up being a personal trigger of mine. So I used to eat almond milk. I used to drink it every day. I used to eat nuts all the time. So probably a huge reason Whole30 never worked out for me and made me worse. But they ended up being a personal trigger for me, in particular walnuts, and those are also high in tyramine food. So I see them as a fairly common trigger on Busy Cook, and I don't know if that's just because it's one of mine, but if it is for you too, here are some alternatives for when you make your smoothie. So you can use fresh fruit, you can use frozen fruit. If you want to do this, you can freeze your fruit for later on. Usually if you're using fresh fruit, I recommend adding ice later on, or what you can do is add riced cauliflower, frozen riced cauliflower. And actually, this is a great substitute, low sugar substitute for banana, because you can get your sweetness from other things. You can get your sweetness from the fruit. You can get your sweetness. A lot of times I like to use this powder called lucuma powder. It's kind of a native ingredient to Peru, and it's sold, you can get it off of Amazon or some health food stores. But basically it's a sweetener with a low glycemic index, and it kind of has like a butterscotchy flavor to it. So I like to add that to my smoothies, especially to prevent that blood sugar spike, but also get that sweetness that I'm kind of missing from bananas. But a few other options that you have. So you can start with your fruit. You can start with our berries, our strawberries, our blueberries mix. I have a few little blackberries over there. What I also like to layer in, if you're looking to add a little bit of protein, I like to do two different options. So depending on the fruit that I'm pairing with it, sometimes I like to do with apples or pears, or any of those kind of, let me try to think. I think apples and pears would probably work best with this, but I like to mix them with sunflower seed butter or pumpkin seed butter. Those flavors combine really, really well together. With berries, I generally like to use cottage cheese. So I actually have sensitivity to yogurt as well. So I like to use cottage cheese as a substitute. Cottage cheese actually has more protein in it than yogurt. So that's kind of good to know. I think you have a question. Someone has a question.
I do. We've had a couple questions for clarification. Okay.
Yeah.
For what's the name of the sweetener again? And if you could spell it, that would be great.
Yeah.
And I'll put it in the site. Okay.
It's called lucuma. So it's Lucuma.
Lucuma?
Yeah.
Great.
And generally it's not widely found, but it's found online. And if you love kind of a banana or butterscotch flavor, it has that sort of taste to it. So I use it all the time in smoothies. It's just a great way to add sweetener without using honey or some of the other things. Of course, you can always use things like monk fruit if you're super sensitive to sugar or added sugar in anything, and you want to keep those lower. Obviously, using things like berries are little less sugar than apples or sometimes pears too. But balancing those two with, seed butters or cottage cheese is another great option. And then the way I like to use or to mix in some omega-3s are to either use chia seeds or flax seeds. So you can find these almost everywhere now. Like I know Trader Joe's has a really good deal on chia and flax. And they're both really high in omega-3 fatty acids. So that's a great way to balance your smoothie out. Just add about a teaspoon or two of those to your smoothies, and you're helping your brain out. If you want to, you can add in a handful of spinach or some kind of greens, whatever your favorite greens are. I do have a smoothie recipe on my website that combines pear and arugula, which is a really good combination. Pear is a little sweet, the arugula is kind of peppery, and then I mix in ginger with that. And a lot of people have said that it actually helps on their migraine days. So especially if they're super nauseous or they're experiencing a high pain attack, I'm sure you guys have seen the studies that have been done on ginger being used as an abortive. So that's a great way to get a little bit of ginger on high pain days too. Is that good? Any other questions about smoothies? I'll show you guys how to make this mocktail now, if you all want to move on.
Okay, let's move on.
Good. Okay.
Move on.
Okay, so I don't know is there anyone else here who has an obsession with fresh herbs? I love fresh herbs. I used to have an herb garden in our old house and I really miss it. So I just planted a few outside because they can get expensive to buy all the time. But I love fresh herbs, especially thyme and rosemary. And one way I keep them is in the fridge. I'll keep them in these cups of water and they'll last me for several weeks. I think this is like actually a few weeks old. And I just change out the water every once in a while. But they stay really fresh like this in your fridge. I'm sorry, did I say freezer? I don't know. Blech. But they'll stay. Oh,
I hate to backtrack, but before we get too far, we do have a question that we can use sunflower seed butter, and the baker wanted to know what was the other butter.
Oh, pumpkin seed butter. So
pumpkin seed butter.
I don't know if I have any in my pantry, but I like to get my pumpkin seed butter from a company called 88 Acres, ACRES, 88. And they're a really small company. I think they're based out of Boston, but they have delicious pumpkin seed butters. So pumpkin seeds like the pepitas, and they have kind of like a nutty, savory flavor to them. And it's delicious in smoothies. Like I have a smoothie recipe on my website that just uses pumpkin seed butter. You could use sunflower seed butter instead if you wanted to, or that's what you have access to. But you can get them. I think now they're available on Whole Foods. You can get them on Amazon, and you can get them. I'm sure if you're in the Northeast, maybe you could find them in some stores up there. But I typically have to order them online. But they have really good, if you're sensitive to nuts like me, it's like all seed stuff. So they have seed nola. So it's like a granola just with seeds in it, which is really nice. And they have lots of different things, even like a watermelon seed butter, which can kind of be a sub for tahini. And so I know some people have like a sesame seed allergy. That would be a great sub for that. Good? Okay, perfect. Okay, so I know we weren't planning on this, but this is what I'm going to kind of show you how I like to make my mocktails. Mocktails are great to start with, especially before you start cooking. I feel like they kind of set the tone for the evening, especially if you find cooking to be very stressful instead of relaxing. If you start yourself with a cute little drink or something like that, it just makes things more fun. And so I'm going to start with a few little blackberries that I have over here. So I'm going to do like about three blackberries, 3 or 4 blueberries in there. And I'm just going to keep this black and blueberry, I'm going to keep this black and blueberry. So I'll add a little more blackberries there today instead of doing the strawberries. But strawberries go really well with this too. I'm going to take a little bit of my fresh rosemary here. It's like a sprig that I'm going to put in the bottom of the glass here. Okay. And then I'm going to get out. Let's see. I like Topo Chico mineral water because it's like super fizzy, you know, super popular here in Texas, but whatever mineral water you can find. If you want this to be a little bit sweet, I would add in a little bit of honey with this too. I'm just going to mash these together. So if you don't have a muddler, you could also use the back of a spoon as well, like a back of your wooden spoon. I'm just going to kind of mash those all together. Pour in a little bit of my sparkling water there. Just kind of mix it all around. I'm going to remove. So you can do this if you want to. You can just strain all this out, or you can leave them at the bottom of the glass, whatever you prefer. I'm going to strain most of it out so I don't have like big chunks. So, but you can see it's like really nice and purple. Then I'm going to get a big, let's see, big ice cube here. So sometimes these fun ice cubes can make things really festive without watering it down too much. Top it off with a little bit more sparkling water. Add in bigger sprig of rosemary here just to make it kind of cute. And then you can, you know, top it off with a few blueberries or whatever. And you have yourself a fun little purple mocktail. That's it. That's all it takes.
It looks great, and I love the color purple.
Yeah.
Very appropriate. Yeah, very appropriate.
You could do this with, I love rosemary. I love the flavor of rosemary, but you could also do this with thyme. Thyme would work out well. Or lavender. If you have like a fragrant lavender plant, that would actually be really beautiful with this, especially with the purple. And it's kind of calming too. So I love the combination of rosemary and strawberries too. So that would be another good combination as well.
Well, thank you. It's great. We have so many things to finish and or to try this evening or tomorrow.
I hope so.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
I hope so.
Are there any other questions? I think have we answered all of them? If you have one, if you can type it in. I have things like, it's been so much fun. Thank you. I want all the recipes. I think Helen said they'd be sent. We'd have them available on the, what did she say? Maybe Helen, can you type in how people can get the recipe, download the recipes or find them. Alicia, I also am so excited about your new book, and you looking at October 2022, and where will it be available?
So it's going to be available everywhere my current book is right now. So you can find it on Amazon. I'll probably get a few copies signed that I'll sell on the dizzycookshop.com.
Great. Okay.
One thing to note is if you buy directly, like I package everything from the dizzycookshop.com, and I think not a lot of people know that like you don't make any money off of books on Amazon. So as like a small author, I guess if you were Ina maybe, but I don't. So it helps support me directly if you buy through the dizzycookshop.com.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll probably have a few copies on there too. I sign them and kind of personalize them and hand package them myself and everything like that. So I don't use a company for it or anything. So just kind of be aware from that. And also a good tip for the Dizzy Cook Shop. So I do these kind of cooking classes on there. I was sort of waiting for spring break and Easter to kind of pass. So there'll be some before the summer that are
Okay.
posted on there. So like we'll have some pad thai ones and stuff like this online. So if you like this class, you'll be able to sign up for those on the dizzycookshop.com too.
Okay, that's great. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming the first cookbook is also available. Are there signed copies on your website for that?
Yeah. So if you want a signed copy, just head to that website too, the dizzycookshop.com, and it's all right there.
Okay.
And for this new book, I'll kind of explain it a little bit more. So the first book really focuses on, helping people with an elimination diet. So say your doctor has given you this list of things to avoid and you just feel like it's overwhelming.
Mhm.
That's where this cookbook comes in, and it kind of helps you navigate that. But the recipes are good for anyone. So even if you're not doing an elimination diet, don't feel like it's not for you. Like, they're delicious recipes. So I have like things like enchiladas in there and meatloaf and great things the whole family will love. This new cookbook really focuses on a sustainable long-term way of eating. So elimination diets are technically temporary. And so this kind of focuses on a long-term way of eating for brain health. So there's a few more things in there. Like you'll see more citrus in there, some use of, I don't use nuts in my recipes because I couldn't test it, but some references to nuts and that sort of thing. So I try to give edits for as many triggers as I've heard of, but so we try to just focus on the main migraine triggers to avoid, but more of what you should include in your diet for things to help your brain health. So that's kind of where this new cookbook's coming from, and I hope that everyone will enjoy it a lot too.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
We are really excited. And do you have a couple of recipes you can share with us? Not the recipes themselves, but just the titles that you think might be fun for us to cook, and that we might
from the new one?
in your cookbooks. Yeah, in your cookbooks.
Oh, so the original one. So one thing I was really proud of was I did a mac and cheese. So it was my goal to make a mac and cheese without aged cheese. So that one's only using fresh cheese. So it's a low pyramine dish, which is kind of fun. And I have enchiladas there that I think are a huge favorite. The Moroccan meatballs, everyone says their kids love. So just it's a lot of stuff that's really easy to make, easy to freeze, very family friendly. There is let me try to think. Oh, there's these pepita protein bars. So like a seed protein bar that I have in my original cookbook that people really like. And then for the new one, we're focusing a lot on fish. So it'll have a lot of salmon recipes in there that are really easy for weeknight meals. So I have like a salmon Caesar salad bowl in there. And then we have one thing that I'm really proud of is like a low sugar honey tahini cookie. So they're like really, really delicious tahini cookies. It sounds kind of strange, but it just works somehow. And a lot of smoothies. So I have a very berry smoothie. So I'll have something like this that we kind of went into today, and I'll show you how to add those extra omega-3s to balance everything. As well as my anti-inflammatory smoothie will be in there too.
Okay, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in touch. I have one more question that's come in that's a little bit nerve-wracking.
Okay.
My pan was too shallow. Laugh out loud. It's overflowing in the oven. What do I do?
Oh no! So the pan is too shallow. I would say that next time what you could do is, well, hopefully you don't fill it all the way next time, or I would definitely invest in a bigger pan. But one thing you can do to kind of protect that is just put a layer of aluminum foil or another sheet pan underneath your cake pan, and that'll kind of help if there's any overflow for next time.
For next time. I know it's so hard. Oh,
it can look intimidating. Sometimes it puffs up really high, but it hopefully isn't going to flow over. But yeah. Oh, Patty, you're muted.
think we all have favorite
There you go.
takeaways. We're taking new tips. We're taking to other baking adventures. I love the vanilla bean sugar. That was a great idea. Thank you.
Sure.
And I'm looking. I think we have all our questions answered. And thank you so much. And I want to remind people, the link for the survey is in the chat room. Please take a few minutes to fill it out. And I also noticed that Shirley Kessel is here. I don't know if you wanted to say a few words or not, Shirley, but we're glad you're here this afternoon.
Oh, well, hey, I obviously thought this started at 4 Eastern and I was wrong. Now, I'm so sorry. I missed it like a dummy. I came on an hour late, but thank you. I just want to say thank you to you for hosting, Patty, and always, Alicia, you're the best. So thank you too.
For me, it's been a lot of fun.
Shirley.
Yeah, thank you, Shirley. Okay. All right.
Do you want to pick a winner?
And
We do that after.
we had a little trouble, Alicia. We couldn't pick a winner. We had to pick two winners today.
Okay.
We just had to pick Lisa Migas, who, and I hope I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, whose birthday it is today. And she's baking this will be her birthday cake. So I think we should all wish her a very happy birthday. Okay. Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing it was your birthday. Yeah. And we also would like to recognize Lisa. We had a Lisa theme, Lisa Carruthers. We noticed that she had a special sous chef, which may have been her husband or her partner, somebody in there helping her. And we love the idea of a family affair. And so she'll be also getting a cookbook. But we had a couple of we had another sous chef, which we thought was really nice. We had Lisa Benson's daughter in, and we just want to thank her. So that was great. So I think we were all top chefs, so I don't think it was fair to have to pick even two top chefs. So you all are. And please look into joining next month's social event. And of course, as we said at the beginning, check our website for our many other events and support. And thank you all for supporting Miles for Migraine.
Yeah, thank you guys. And if you have any other questions pop up, just message me. Feel free to reach out, and please tag me in your photos too once your cake is done. I would love to see them too.
Oh, that would be fun. Yes, and great. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, and please go to the chat room and complete the survey. Bye.